Hey, I'm Marisa Corcoran, and I'm about to teach you the Story Stripdown method so that you can reverse engineer storytelling and have more impact in your emails and social posts so that they actually get read and responded to.
Do you have any explanation about why storytelling? Like, I know you witnessed the conversions, but clearly it works.
We have to remember that people make purchasing decisions based on two things. One is what you're selling, something that I want. That's why your message, that what I do statement has to be so clear. Like, is there something that you specifically specialize in, or a group or an industry or a niche that you specialize in? Like, how do we position you as that specialist in a sea of generalists? That's like the first thing that we want to look at. And then the second thing is, okay, if people are making that purchasing decision on one, is what you're selling something that I want? That's your message. Number two, are you the person that I want to do it with? And that's why your personality matters so much. But when people hear personality, they feel like, I have to have this big bombastic personality, or I have to like reveal all. But I think people find it hard to find where they fit in. And I think stories are such a great way to start to begin to share bits of our personality or behind the scenes or things. And storytelling works. It's our oldest form of communication. It dates back to the Chauvet caves, like 30,000 years ago. It's like proven that our brains are more likely to absorb a teachable moment, swallow a bitter pill, like if there is a story attached to it, as opposed to just be like, do this, be this, we just hop on our soapbox. Like we always think we have to have like this giant origin story, this big thing that's happened to us. It's very often like what you learn from in the actor world, we call them slice of life moments that are really what tie people in, the things that we think are kind of boring or uninteresting.
Oh, I love that. Sometimes it's just so hard to shine that light on ourselves too, which is why
100%.
we're going to talk about the story strip down. So let's get into this and how you want to do it.
So tell more stories, right? And everybody tells you, I'm sure people have been listening right now and they're like, oh yeah, another person telling me I have to tell more stories. I'm somebody that I'm thinking my whole life, this could be a story. This could be a slice of life moment. Very often we're like sitting in front of the Google Doc and we're like, okay, but how do I tell this story? How do I connect it back to my audience? How do I connect it back to the teachable moment? And then we just don't do it. And then the emails are super dry or the caption is super dry. So something that we created inside of the Copy Confidence Society is called the Story Stripdown, which is how to reverse engineer your storytelling. The first thing you want to think about is asking yourself, okay, what is the takeaway of this email, of this caption? Like, what is the teachable moment? What's the takeaway? What is something, you want them to get from this? And then you ask yourself the second part, which is to go, okay, what's stopping them from just doing it? Like, what's getting in the way from them to just take the teachable moment and listen to you and go do it? Like, what's the underlying feeling there? And then third part is, when has there ever been a time in your life that you have felt that emotion? And it's likely to be outside of your business. It might be, but it's likely to be outside of your business in another area, or it could have something to do with somebody else. So this is the third step where we have to take off our marketing hat and we got to put on our creative hat. So we got to like really allow ourselves to think through that. And then we pull out that story and connect it back. So let me give you an example of it. I was going to be on a podcast where I was going to be premiering a lead magnet, new free gift that I had been working on called the 50 plus scroll stopping subject lines. How to take your emails from maybe read later to must read now in seconds. And I worked really, we attach it to full length email so people can see it. We give 3 different subject line formulas. Like we make it super simple because we have very high open rate in the company. So I was like, okay, well, and I was going to premiere it on this podcast. So like, yeah, I could just write an email that's like, yeah, I'm going to be on this podcast and you'll get my subject lines. And I was like, I really want people to understand the power of this. So the power of understanding that like, you can have a great email or a great caption, social post, but if you don't have a great hook or a great like subject line, it's not going to get open or read or looked at. So, okay, so that's the teachable moment. That's the takeaway. Okay. So what stops people from just listening to me and going to do it? And what I was thinking about was what I've heard from people is there's like that kind of fear of the overwhelm of choice. Like, how do I know which subject line to choose? Yeah. How do I know which one to do? Like, what are the rules? Like, how do I know if it's too long or too short or, and so then you don't do it. And then you don't put the focus there because you're just like, you put all that focus into the email and you're just like, there's too much, I'm too overwhelmed. There's too much choice. So then I was like, okay, when have I ever felt that in my life? And this is where I had to think about it. And then I remembered a conversation that I had had with my mother-in-law at this time, not long before that. So while everybody else is like downsizing and like moving to Florida when they retired, my in-laws built like their dream home. Like this thing is like Joanna Gaines, like Magnolia Network. Like my mother-in-law is not messing around. And their kitchen is the kitchen of dreams. And I remember walking in there and I was like, Rachel, how did you put this together? And she said, oh, it was overwhelming. But when we did it, the designer, the person gave me kind of 3 different layouts for what this kitchen could look like. And then I chose, and then we customized it from there. And so I remembered back to that story and I'm like, that's the story. So the email starts off with like, there I was in my mother-in-law's, kitchen island, as big as an upstate New York county. I could bathe in the sink and I stood there with my Earl Grey tea and looked at my mother-in-law like, how did you do this? And she was like, well, it was overwhelming at first, but they gave me choices and then we were able to customize. And it was like having, support and choices really helps on your way to creating something that works for you. The same for your emails, especially when it comes to your subject lines. So this is why I'm so excited to welcome you to, join me on this podcast with, my friend Rachel, where we're going to break down 3 subject line formulas to help you get your emails open and read. So the Story Stripdown is like, I use this all the time, and our people in the society use it all the time to walk through. Instead of just feeling like they have to come up with a story on the spot, they like reverse engineer to come up with the story that they'll tell.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. So what's your advice for someone who's trying to figure out like the takeaway? Because, we're supposed to send out an email every week. And how do we like go one step backward with that?
Like for me, there are 4 points that I go back to. We call them in the society your motifs, like your themes or your motifs that you go back to. So I really think about, okay, if someone is going to be part of the Copy Confidence Society, what do they need to understand to be a really great candidate to be in the program? So understanding that I always talk about, people are making purchasing decisions based on 2 things. So one is what you're selling, something that I want. So that's where the messaging piece is so key. So I go back to this thing of saying all the time, I say over and over again, the best copy cannot fix a muddied message. So that's one of my motifs. My other motif is that second way people are making purchasing decisions, which is your personality and why personality matters in your copy. That's my second motif. And then my third that I talk a lot about is kind of like the myth of consistency. Well, I posted today, or I sent the email today and nothing's happening. And like, that's something we go back to again and again and talk about are you actually adding in these things? This is where I can talk about the story stripped down and these other things. So that's like an example of like 3 of my motifs.
Yeah.
And so in a given month, I will spend like a week on one motif, go to the next one, go to the next one, the next one. And then I just repeat, because people have to hear you say the same things over and over again. People have to hear things 7, 12 times before they get it. And so I don't want to muddy the waters of what we can help people do. So I have my motifs and I go back to those again and again.
And I see you do it on social very well. Before we go any further, tell us where we can grab this 50 scroll stopping headlines, because that sounds like it's going to change everybody's life.
Yeah. So we've been talking about, so the 50 plus scroll stopping subject lines in there are 3 different subject line formulas. There's the Cosmo concept. That seems to be like a real fan favorite. And then the Darlene and Clark method, and then the International Man of Mystery. So there's 3 formulas in there, and there's over 50 subject lines that I show you exactly how to like swipe and turn them into something for your niche or your industry. And I pair some of them with full length emails. So you can see like this whole process kind of in action. So you can grab that at marisacorcoran.com/subject lines.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to report back to you too. I have downloaded this, but the subject lines, some people are just really terrible at it. They need this framework, especially our clients.
Yeah. Cause sometimes people can get the story stripped down. They'll say, okay, this is my motif. I want people to walk away with this teachable moment, or I want them to go to this, and they can walk themselves through it. And then when they're there, they're like, I've really nailed this. So how do I make sure it gets read or gets opened or gets looked at? And that's where the subject lines, which can also double as like an opening line for Instagram or for a social post too. They can double as like an opening hook.
There's nothing worse than spending time like crafting the story. I give my whole heart, and then for like an email to fall flat. So I just cannot stress this enough. That subject line is like so critical, because I know we're judging in an instant whether we're going to open this email or not. So everyone go grab this. We'll put the link in the show notes below. Do you have any parting words for anyone looking at developing this skill?
I always say that your business has 3 basic needs. Like 1, you have to sell in a way that feels good. 2, you have to call in the right people to sell to. And 3, you have to know what to say to call in the right people to sell to. This is why copy is the most important skill you can have. So this is such a great skill to hone in on that can add, if you are, a service provider or want to learn more about copy, can add such a beautiful like expansion to your business, and it's never going out of style. You're always going to need to talk about what you do and how you do it with clarity. So it's perhaps the most important skill you can have as a business owner.
Oh my gosh, you sold me.